Good evening, everyone. I want to welcome everybody to the October meeting for the Clay County Board of Education. We've got, as you can see, Mr. Caldwell's not here. He's on the telephone with us this evening. He's traveling and out of town, so he's going to be attending over the telephone with us this evening. And Mr. Jones, I would ask if you don't mind to say the Pledge of Allegiance.
And pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And Ms. Beck, if you wouldn't mind reading the Clay County Schools mission statement, please.
The mission of Clay County Schools is to build high-quality learning environments that ensure all students learn at high levels.
Thank you. And our next regular board meeting will be November the 28th, 6 o'clock in here in the boardroom. And at this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as it's presented this evening.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second it.
Ms. Beck, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And at this time, we have public comments, and we have Miss Johnny.
Okay, so now that the CDC has voted to require the mRNA vaccine for all school children, I would like to hear how the board, you, feels about this. This is important to know ahead so parents that do not believe having this inoculation is in the best interest of their children will know where you stand, and it'll give parents the ability to plan ahead for future schooling should your board choose to implement the requirements of the mRNA. And I understand a lot hinges on the state, but I look forward to hearing where Clay County's Board of Education stands on the mRNA vaccine requirements.
Thank you, John. Mr. Paul.
So I'd like to share an observation, perhaps better cited as an impression, I made having seen a number of initiatives either proposed or reported for the Clay County schools. Having attended these meetings for some time now, it's clear that many terrific initiatives have been or are being implemented that positively impact the students. However, one thing really jumped out at me during the Participate Learning initiative proposed at the August meeting. While a comprehensive and well-composed initiative, it focuses on teaching the teachers how to teach. It also does that in a manner that strives to synchronize our teachers with global leanings that may actually be at odds with their own beliefs here in Clay County. Some of these explicitly stated in the presentation include gender equality, climate action, and United Nations or UN sustainability goals. Now, I'm not standing here as an advocate, opponent, or even saying these are not admirable goals, but to say we in Clay County are in complete agreement with that, with what the UN or anybody else is saying about them, might be a bit of a stretch. Let me get back to my main point for tonight. As some of these initiatives strive to teach our teachers how to teach, how about we focus on just letting the teachers teach? I assume we hire teachers based on their credentials, their experience, and how appropriate we feel they fit into the Clay County school personality and character. So if that's the case, how about we focus on getting them what they need, minimize the bureaucratic effort it burdens them with, and just let them do what they already know how to do. If we hire them for how good they are, we really shouldn't be handing them a scripted day-by-day directive. There's a book titled What School Should Have Taught You by Aidan Tate, and I thought it's really good, the first couple of paragraphs in his summary. You sat through years of calculus, organic chemistry, and Asian literature classes, and now you've graduated. And it sure didn't take you long to realize that school didn't actually teach you what you needed to know to make it out in the real world. You can hammer out the periodic table, but you don't know how to make a budget, how to find an apartment, or a bunch of other things associated with normal life. As we are truly blessed with a close personal connection between our students and teachers due to the size of our school, then perhaps we can cover more basic and important life skills such as Aiden describes. I know there's a move afoot to do just that, and a big bravo for that initiative. In addition, perhaps instead of refocusing our teachers from what they already know how to do, how about we just let them teach? Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. So next we have a recognition section of the agenda. Mr. Cole's gonna.
Angel, do you have that list of students that participated?
It'll be on the next slide.
It'll be on the next slide. Good. Okay, because I don't have that in my notes. That was a later addition, so I'll read from the PowerPoint maybe.
Next slide. There you go.
Okay. First of all, members of the board, we haven't done this in the past. Normally, we have each board meeting, we involve a local restaurant to provide lunch for the board and the members of the staff that are attending the board meeting, because obviously most of the time we have to miss dinner. So unless we're going to eat at 9 o'clock at night when we get back home, we feel like it's a good use of expenses to provide lunch for everybody, and we've kind of spread that around. Tonight, for the first time, we did something different, and we've involved our foods classes and our foods teacher, Ms. Reinhardt. She and her students are now going to provide dinner for the board as well as the staff members that have to be in attendance at the board meeting at each board meeting. So they already do that as a part of their foods classes under the Foods and Tourism Pathway of CTE. So this just gives them an opportunity to do it for real and get some feedback from the board and the staff on how they did. And so tonight, these students were a part of this, and obviously they're not here tonight, but we did want to recognize them. They fixed beef chili and white chicken chili for us. Both were excellent. I think that's what I heard from the board. We very much appreciate their work, and we look forward to seeing what they come up with for us at board meetings to come. So I did really want to thank them for their efforts, as well as Ms. Reinhardt for leading that effort. All right. The one other recognition that we have that is on the agenda is I wanted to make sure to recognize our transportation director, Mr. Jimmy Moore. Again, transportation is one of those departments that we don't celebrate enough. You know, it's hard to celebrate everyone as much as they should, but the fact is, without the buses and the bus drivers, none of us would have a job to do. Because we wouldn't have any kids and we'd all just be sitting here looking at one another. And on a related note, we need some bus drivers. So anyone that's watching that's interested in helping us out with that, we need some substitute bus drivers. We've managed to stay just ahead on having just enough bus drivers to get our routes done, but we really need some substitutes. But a few months ago, I don't know how many in here remember this, but I guess several years ago, the Volkswagen Corporation got into some trouble because they were marketing and advertising, I think they're called Blue Tech diesel engines that they were putting in their vehicles as being like almost zero emissions. And some third-party testing after the fact proved that that was not the case, and that some members of the team at Volkswagen were cooking the books, and then selling those cars underneath that internationally. And so as a result, they were sued by the U.S. government, the U.S. Attorney's Office, and Volkswagen USA lost that lawsuit, and there were damages in the multi-billions. And it kind of worked out like the lawsuits against the tobacco companies for false advertising and false marketing. All of this money was set aside to help schools. And one of the areas that they've been working on with these funds are new buses for local school districts all across the nation. And so Mr. Moore worked on an application for this grant, and we received notification a week ago that we received this grant. Now, he wrote this grant to get 7 buses, to get 2 activity buses and 5 yellow buses, which would have been fantastic. We got 1 activity bus, but we'll take it. So that was $104,079 from the Volkswagen grant, the Volkswagen mitigation grant. And so we've got some other steps that we've got to go through before we can order the new activity bus, which will be a white bus. But I wanted to recognize Mr. Moore for his efforts in going above and beyond, because in a county our size, I mean, when you need a bus, you need a bus, and the county has to pay for it because the state doesn't, not when it comes to activity buses. This saved the taxpayers of the county $104,000. So I just wanted to make sure that we recognized him for his work.
Thank you for
Thank
that. And next we have Miss Angel Owens. She's going to report on some Medicaid reimbursement funds.
Yes. So when I first came into EC 8 years ago, we did not bill Medicaid. And it's not necessarily billing, it's asking.
Just members of the board, real quick, there's a handout in your folder that's just a copy of what Ms. Owens is talking about with a little more detail just to help you out.
So we never asked for Medicaid reimbursement. And basically what it is we are asking Medicaid to reimburse us for services that would normally be billed outside of the school system by other therapists. And 2.5 years ago, you guys agreed to let me start the process to be able to bill Medicaid. And as Ms. Hollingsworth reported last month, right now we have approximately $551,000 that we have built up from those reimbursement funds. So in looking at the needs for our district, the needs of our EC students, especially design instruction, I started releasing funds for the classrooms to start with for specially designed instructional materials. So each classroom that was an inclusion classroom or a resource classroom, we gave them an additional $500 per classroom per certified teacher to buy materials. That was in addition to what we normally would give them for a school year. And then for our intensive needs classrooms, we gave an additional $1,000 for those classrooms, because those classrooms take some more specialized equipment and materials in there. So that was approximately $12,000 that after that last meeting I started releasing out into use in the classrooms, and we're starting to get some of that stuff in now and get it for use in the classrooms. We also plan, we have a one-on-one TA that's in the intensive needs classroom next door. We're funding that position through this funding. That's salaries, benefits, and everything for her, because we did not qualify for a state-funded grant for that position. So that's where we're getting that funding. We're also going to use this funding to sustain the compliance specialist position that we are right now funding through ESSER, but that will end next September. So this is the funding that will be used for her salary and benefits. So what I'd like to propose tonight is bonuses for the EC department staff. We've had an influx of students from the charter school that closed down in Cherokee County, the Learning Center, and there were approximately 35 to 36 students that came from that district, from that charter school, and about a third of those students had IEPs. And unfortunately, those IEPs come to us, some of them missing documentation, some of those needing appropriate documentation that what was sent to us was not appropriate. So we're in the process of doing a re-eval for any student that came through that transition where that school closed down. With that comes a lot of documentation, a lot of research, a lot of reaching out to outside agencies and trying to pull together what we can as fast as we can to get active IEPs for those students. So that has, as you can imagine, just bombarded our EC teachers with a lot of extra work that they normally wouldn't have had, because typically we start school year with our students prepared and ready to go with our documentation. In addition to that, because of the school closure, the students coming back, we've had some intensive behaviors. We're getting more referrals for behaviors, more referrals to help with those behaviors. Again, that's more documentation, more data, and the whole school has to deal with it, but if you're looking at a referral for a behavior, an emotional disability, an autism disability, you're talking about an evaluation process, referral, preparation for those meetings, reaching out to outside agencies and inviting and trying to collaborate and getting those to the meetings as well. So again, a lot more work has been added to this staff who already, we don't receive enough funding as it is to staff the students we have. So what I would like to propose, because we have this extra funding and there is a code in the code of the chart of accounts for this funding, there is an allowable bonus. And I would like to propose a $500 bonus for the teacher assistants that are non-certified. And that would be pre-tax, but we would also cover the FICA and the retirement match. And a $1,000 bonus for the certified EC staff. And again, us covering the FICA and the retirement match. This would come to a total of $28,412.25 approximately out of that $551,000. It's not recurring, we're just asking for it this one time this year. If we decide to revisit it again in another coming year, we'll do that then, but right now but I'm looking at it from the need of the influx of new students from the closing charter school and then just the more heightened behavior needs. So that's what I'm asking for.
Just a couple of clarifications as well. One, that $550,000 can only be spent for support for EC students
Correct.
and EC staff.
Yes, and we
So
have to follow that.
We can't just use it to remodel a gym or something like that. It has to be used for EC. And I say that tongue in cheek, but you would be amazed how many people ask me all the time that, I've looked at the budget, why don't y'all just use this money for this? And it's because we can't. We're not allowed to do that. As the board members know, I would say that public education budgets are the most complicated budgets you will ever find. So we piece together a lot of pots to make things happen for our teachers and our students. So this particular pot has to be used for EC student services and EC staff support, which this does fall under. Another thing that the board may not be aware of is that we were informed that the Mountain Ed charter school or alternative school in North Georgia is also closing down. And we have some students there as well. Now, I don't know if those students are going to come back to us or if they're going to quit or what, but those were the two alternative settings in our area. And they're both, one is already shut down and the other one is shutting down. So again, if those students elect to come back, and I mean, honestly, I hope they do, our EC team is very particular about their work and that they do things right in accordance with state and federal law. So if there are issues with the IEPs that come with those students, we're going to fix them. But that requires a whole lot of extra time and effort that they didn't plan for or account for. So I'm in support of this.
Our leadership team also discussed it prior to proposal, so
Dr. Shook and I elected to put this on the reports part of the agenda because I didn't know if the board would want to think about this for a month and vote on it November 28th or not. If you wanted to vote on it tonight, you could, someone could make a motion, elect to place it on the action agenda, and then you could vote on it if you wanted. That's up to the board.
And I'll have to say there's a huge shortage in EC staffing across the state right now, especially in rural areas like ours. I love the staff we have. I would hate to lose anybody because they're, they feel, I don't want to say, I just want to know that we appreciate the work they're doing. And this is one thing that is allowable. We've got the funds right now. Can't promise we'll have it ever again, but,
Well, if we want to vote on that, we would need to move that, have a motion to make that a actionable item on the agenda, and then we can take action on it.
I would like to make that motion.
So Ms. Beck has made a motion to, go ahead, Mr. Caldwell.
Can I second that motion?
Okay, so Ms. Beck has made a motion to move that to the action part of the item, and Mr. Caldwell has seconded that motion.
thank
Any
you.
discussion or comments?
I did have a quick question about what is the percentage of our student body is considered?
We receive funding from the state based on 12% of our ADM. kindergarten through 12.
12.
Right now, we are at 19%. So 7% of our EC population, not counting those students that came in from the Learning Center, that's not counted. This is my last child count last April. So those kids have been added as well. But right from our last child count, 7% of our students are not funded. We are funding that through these types of funding and local funding.
Okay, I have a question. Is this going on throughout every county in North Carolina?
I don't know. Your Medicaid reimbursement funds come back to you because it's money that we have spent out of the funds we received for special ed. We paid that up front. Now we're getting that back because we asked Medicaid to pay us back for what we've already spent out of our funds. And we look at the chart of accounts of what's allowable to see where we can spend it, which is where I did the materials and the positions. And then because this year's intensiveness, I discussed with the leadership team and Mr. Cole about offering a bonus to the staff just to show, that we do notice the work that they're doing.
So we've,
Just a real quick clarification on your question as well, Ms. Crawford. So ADM's average daily membership, that's how many students attend our schools, which right now is, I think, right around 1,350 kids. The state will pay us up to 12% of our student body for EC services, but actually 19% of our student body qualifies for EC. So we're left with that 7% gap between state and federal funding and what we actually have to provide. And that's the reason why we got into Medicaid reimbursement for this, because when we use our funds to pay, say, a third-party speech therapist or something like that to work with a kid, then we can file that after the fact to Medicaid, and if they approve it, they reimburse us. And then we can use that money to provide additional services for our students. So just over time, it just has kind of built, and we haven't really been using it. So now we kind of have a substantial amount, and this was an opportunity that we felt like was worth considering for our EC team.
On that point about that percentage in the ADM, they give us a set amount per student regardless of their needs. So it could be student A needs speech, student B needs speech, occupational therapy, physical therapy, one-on-one assistant, and they still just get the same pot of money, same amount. So it's where we have to, manipulate and figure out where we need to best spend the money and how we can find money to pay for positions and stuff. And I'm tickled to death that we're starting to see it's a lot of work to do Medicaid, especially on the finance department and the people having to go in their surveys they have to do. They have to file the Medicaid reimbursement claim. But we're starting to see the repercussion and reap the rewards of it. And I'm thankful that everybody's taking the time to do it correctly so that we are getting that money back.
And this is sitting in a pot. It's not like we have to use it within a certain time frame,
No.
right? Okay.
No.
Just want to make sure. Okay.
Yeah.
But you did say that it's non-recurring, so.
The bonus, I'm not asking for an annual bonus.
All right.
This is a one-time to, just recognizing the uniqueness of the beginning of this school year and how it's really been hard for our EC staff. It's been tough, and our administrators too.
So this is an ongoing thing, to be able to access funds from Medicaid.
We will, yes.
We
Yes,
provide services all the time,
Right,
so
okay.
every month we're submitting for reimbursement to Medicaid. And so this pot of money is always kind of in flux. But what we're asking for is approval to expend some of these funds for this purpose, this one time. And we could do it again in the future next year if we chose to, but just this one time.
so Ms. Becky's made a motion to move this to an action item. Mr. Caldwell seconded that. All in favor? Aye. Mr. Caldwell?
Yes, aye.
Okay. So now then, I will entertain a motion that we approve the request to use the Medicaid reimbursement funds for a one-time bonus for the EC staff.
I'll make a motion.
Ms. Crawford makes a motion.
I'll second it.
Ms. Beck second. All in favor? All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Amy.
And my EC staff thanks you. They didn't know about it. I hadn't mentioned it to them, so some of them watching tonight's just now finding out about it, so we really appreciate that, thank
That's
you.
exciting.
Well, I think it's important to hear this too, because I think that's an area we don't hear enough, or I feel like I don't hear a lot about, so I don't fully understand those areas and the uniqueness and the additional work
That goes
that goes
into it.
in. I mean, you hear about it, but it's
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's incredible, and it's so, this speaks in such an example of just the kind of work that goes on in the EC department and the dedication of those people.
Yes.
And I would commend Ms. Owens for that as well.
Oh, well, thank you, I appreciate that.
recommendations come from class, from teachers and
Right.
staff.
Ms. Owens, you're on number 8 as
I'm
well.
next,
So
yeah.
the Heights
Okay, so
MOU.
last month y'all were presented with a copy of an MOU from Heights. And this is a new entity that is proposing to provide some services for Clay County schools. The services they're proposing are restorative mediation in sentencing circles. This is like a peer group mediation for infractions that happen in school and trying to keep students out of court. You know, let's take care of it here. They wouldn't be crazy serious issues that might need to go directly to the law, but it's just bringing a peer group together and helping bring decisions about how to help students with their behaviors. Truancy mediation, peacekeeping classes, and they described this today when we met with one of their representatives, is this can also be within, like, if a family agrees, if there's conflict, you know, older students, sometimes there's conflicts, parents and their child, they'll actually help in that situation as well, you know, if the family elects and wants that type of help. And then they'll also refer out to service providers such as pace setters, youth villages, and other community-based services. Our end of this agreement would be to provide them the space here on campus and to help them contact parents to get permission to work with their students, and also for us to do the referrals of students to them. It's something we've discussed for over a year now, and it's just now coming to fruition. So we're just asking for approval for this MOU with Heights.
So again, a couple of clarifications too. This is another one of those sort of Medicaid things where if we have a situation come up like this and we do a referral to Heights and they provide a service to the student and or parent, then they will bill Medicaid in order to get paid. So it's not us paying them. We are doing the referral. They provide a service to the student and parents, and then they bill Medicaid for that service. Sometimes that is well, honestly, we don't have a mental health therapist in our employ. I would love to have one. You'll recall that we wrote a grant and received it through the Dogwood Trust and Mayhead to have an on-site mental health therapist to work with students. But we didn't get any applications. There were no applicants for over a year, so we ended up just shutting that down for lack of applicants. But a company like Heights, they can provide services like that. And for example, peacekeeping. You know, if a parent and their child are really going at it at home, sometimes they ask for our help in managing that, and that's not really a place that the school district wants to be in. Like we don't want to get placed between a parent and one of our students that we're having to work with during the day. So it's better if we have a third party, and plus we're not really trained to be a mental health therapist. That's just not what we do. Yeah. And so it's nice to have a third party entity that is trained in that we can refer them to. So that's kind of what this is about. It doesn't mean that we would use any of these services. It means these are the services that they provide that we could make a reference for.
Are these services restricted to an EC
No.
student?
No.
Okay.
It's for any student.
Now, how far down does it go? Does it go all the way to preschool or above first grade going up?
It covers pre-K 12.
Is there anyone else in the area, when I say anyone, any other district using Heights that you know of?
Well, Heights has, I believe they've stepped in where VIA used to be the only entity around. And so, Mountain Mediation is what it used to be, and it's changed over. But Pace Setters and Youth Villages have been around, and VIA used to be our recruitment people for them and would make those suggestions for students that might utilize those services. But now Heights is in partnership with Pace Setters and Youth Villages, so.
Well, I think Heights bought out Mountain Mediations.
Mediation.
And we had a partnership with Mountain Mediations, but they no longer exist as an entity. It has become Heights, so we'd have to have a new MOU. And I also want to point out that all of this is voluntary. Like, it's not something that we could force parents or students to do. It's an option that we can make them aware of.
Yes. It's just offering more outside services, and we've got so many needs. It's nice to have a list of places to offer to help them. You've been using that at the elementary. So Ms. Godfrey said they've been using it for tardies and the remote instruction where they weren't active in those instructions online.
So, any more questions or conversation about the MOU with Heights? If not, I'll entertain a motion that we approve this MOU.
I'll make a motion to approve the MOU.
Ms. Beck, is there a second?
I'll second
Ms.
it.
Crawford, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Owens.
Mr. Shook, will you sign this?
Thank you.
Thank you all.
The next item is the June 26, 2023 regular meeting, moving that to Thursday, June 29th, 2023. And that's to help close out the fiscal year end. That helps Ms. Hollingsworth out with bookkeeping quite a bit to put that as close to the end of the fiscal year as we can. So is there a issue with that? Or can we move that meeting? Is that good?
We do it.
Okay.
I second.
Mr. Jones, Ms. Beck made a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Next, we have the Clay County Schools organizational chart from,
Yes, members of the board, this was shared last month. I was asked by the board to put together just a current organizational chart for central office staff of just what areas we have, who reports to who. And so I did that last month, shared it with the board and for your review. And this is just before I put it on the webpage, I just would ask that the board approve this as written and shared with you last month. There are some title changes, but that's just to help me with the definitions of organization. It doesn't come with any salary changes. So no salary changes are involved in this. It was just some name changes for titles to just kind of clear some things up, and then who reports to who. Does anyone have any questions?
if there's no questions or comments, I'll entertain a motion that we approve this organizational chart for 2022.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Ms. Crawford.
I'll second it.
Ms. Beck, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And next we have Ms. Hollingsworth, the recommendation about classified salaries.
Okay, last month we made a presentation to you all about the Fair Labor Standards Act and moving the remaining 19 employees that we have that are non-certified staff members, which a lot of times we refer to as classified. over to hourly beginning next school year, July 1, so we can be in compliance with Fair Labor Standards Act record-keeping requirements, and especially with those that are dual employees. So I hope you've had time to go home and look over what we provided last month. I did do a Q&A and shared with everybody, and I also shared that Q&A with the 19 staff members that it would impact, to give them an opportunity to ask questions. And I think I had answered most of them. I looked again today and there wasn't anything new out there. So now I'll give you an opportunity to ask questions if you have any that are remaining, and recommend that we move forward starting July 1 with converting the rest of our employees to hourly.
Are there any other questions or comments about that transition to hourly?
What kind of feedback were you hearing from them? Were they understanding?
Actually, I only really had one question that was posted that was not one that I had already anticipated and answered myself. I had put 5 of them out there. The only one that was a concern about classified staff who are hourly, and also coaches, and how they would be handled if they did not meet that 40 hours in their regular job. They would need to make sure during that week that they have those games or events, that they adjust their schedule accordingly to accommodate for that. This is not something new that we've had to handle. We already have one of our truly hourly folks through the attrition process that is a coach, and he has to handle his schedule that week accordingly. It might mean that, if it's a Friday night game, then he has to adjust his schedule during the week to make sure he gets as close as 40 hours that week as he can, so he does not, see an impact that week in his hours. So that was really the only question, besides a few that I had anticipated that maybe asked, and it looks like they probably covered most of the questions anybody had to begin with.
Any other questions or comments on this? Nope, everybody's good. Mr. Caldwell? You're good? Okay. So then I'll entertain a motion that we approve the transition to classified salaries to hourly in order to keep up with Fair Labor Standards Act.
I'll make that motion.
Ms. Beck, the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Caldwell seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. That's all for us.
And we do have plans. I will meet with everybody, all 19 staff individually, in the next month or two, to go over everything with them, so they'll have an idea of how this is going to impact.
And next we have budget amendments with Ms. Hoppinger.
Okay, the first one we'll go over is the Federal Grants Fund. We are budgeting an additional $3,138,494.71. We had numerous budgets that at the time we did the actual budget resolution that we were still working back and forth with the Department of Public Instruction to get approval. And you can see that I've got those listed at the bottom. They were Title I, IDEA, Title II, Student Support and Academic Enrichment, the Rural Low Income Services, ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 grants, and one of the ESSER 3 was the really large one at $1,999,907.88. Then we had ESSER 3 IDEA grant and the ESSER 3 IDEA pre-K grant. So that came out to $3,138,494.71 in additional funding to budget in the federal funds. Do you have any questions on the federal amendments?
Just as a reminder, the ESSER funds are COVID relief funds.
Yes. The other specific revenue fund, which we refer to as Fund 8 oftentimes, is an additional $318,816.86. This is for our social worker grant through the health department. That's the $30,338. The Communities for Students county contribution for this year, $38,360.93. Gear Up, which is a combination of their expenses from July through September because their fiscal year is a little different than ours, and then the upcoming school year allocation for their budget year, which comes up to $210,458.88. Pre-K snack monies that were collected, $1,150, and that's just for those kids that are not actually funded with NC pre-K slot funds, so they do have to pay for their snacks for the year. And then we have the sales tax revenue that we are anticipating receiving from the last fiscal year, which is $38,509.05. Are there any questions on those additional revenues?
Any questions or comments on those from Ms. Hollingsworth? Nope. If not, I'll entertain a motion that we accept those recommendations for the budget.
I make a motion to accept.
Mr. Jones, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Ms. Beck, all in favor? Thank you.
Thank you.
Sandra. Next, we have Ms. Heather Clemens with the primary school improvement plan.
Just very quick, while Ms. Clemens comes up, as a reminder to the board and members of the public that are watching, each year, North Carolina has a state law specific to school improvement planning for schools. Each year, each school in North Carolina is required to have their school improvement team, which is made up of the principal, the assistant principal, the counselor, a representative group of teachers, as well as at least one parent. They like to have more, but at least one parent puts together, they review the data from the previous school year, and they develop a plan of improvement. That plan of improvement is developed by the school improvement team. That is then presented to the staff as a whole, and the staff has to vote on it to accept it. Once the staff accepts their school improvement plan by a majority vote, then the principal is required to present that school improvement plan to the members of the Board of Education for approval. When you hear this plan, you will have a choice. You can either vote to approve that plan, in which case we will move forward, or if you're not satisfied with the plan, you can elect not to approve it and provide any additional information or goals or action steps that you would like to see placed in that plan and send it back. We would get with the school improvement team, make the necessary adjustments, and we would bring it back to you for approval next month. And we'd keep doing it until we had an approved plan. So I just want to make that clear. All right? I know you guys know it, but members of the public may not. So.
All right. Well, thank you. So to start off with, I wanted to just sort of touch on the fact that the beginning of every plan is there's not exactly a beginning. It's a continuation from the things that we've been working on, and a big part of that is having summertime meetings where we look at what have we done, what have we accomplished. So we did have a really great summer meeting with our school improvement team this year and determined what we had met, what we could move on from, and then what did we think that we probably needed to keep working at. One positive, or I think it's a really big positive, is that from our North Carolina teacher working conditions survey that we did last spring, each of our action steps that we had the year before that were tied to meeting a certain mark on that dealt with school culture, we met. So I was very pleased with that overall I feel like we've made great strides in improving our school culture and making it a collaborative environment. We try to value every voice that's in the building, and we want to make sure that all of those are heard and are put into what we do for the school improvement plan. So as you can see, we kept our vision and mission that we had developed last year. That was a big piece of what we worked on last year, just defining who we are, what we want to do, and what we want to become. I shared the video with you last year, so I'm not going to do that again, but I know you have that link in your drive, and you can watch that anytime you would like to. So we were pretty proud of that. Our vision is to develop well-rounded, confident, and responsible individuals who aspire to achieve their full potential. And our mission is to provide a welcoming, happy, safe, and supportive learning environment in which everyone is equal and all achievements are celebrated. So those are geared towards our learners. That's the most important thing, is that we provide that for our students. We did do a little bit of a different thing with our team this year. We have some default members, me as the principal, and then we have our leaders of our MTSS, our PBIS, and our SEL within our school. So each of those people will continue to hold a spot on our school improvement team. Shay Riggins, our counselor, Michelle Calashoni is an EC teacher, but she is leading up our PBIS initiative, and then Breeze Raxter is our instructional coach. The other people, we decided to do 1 year and 2 year terms so that we'll always have an overlap and some carryover. We felt like that was a good way to not try to just scramble and start at the beginning every year. That way we've got carryover each year, and we have a parent representative. Carrie Hood's finishing up this is her second year of a 2 year term, and then Erin McCoy is a parent for the first year of a 2 year term, and then the others are teacher representatives. So we established 3 overall goals that have to do with student outcomes. We have a reading goal, we'll have a math goal, and we have an SEL goal. Our reading goal is broken into 2 parts. One deals with our iReady data, and the other with our MTSS data. Those don't match up. We know, as we've presented to you guys in the past, that they're delivered through different mediums. The iReady is on the iPad, it's student to the iPad. And the MClass is student to teacher assessment. They're both working towards the same objectives, but we end up with different outcomes. MClass was added in last year, so we felt like it was important to kind of keep track of that and how are we doing from year to year with that. Last year we did meet our reading goal. We met what we had said we wanted to, and so for the 22-23 school year, our goal is to push that up to 75% of our K-2 students meeting grade level proficiency as measured by iReady. For MClass, we had just sort of a baseline year. Last year, we had 61% of our students meeting benchmark at that, and this coming year, we're aiming for 65% or above.
Just real quick, reminder to the board, normally we would not have 2 assessments for the same grades for the same thing, like reading. But we had already committed to iReady as our assessment tool. That was one of the top choices by the state, but for whatever reason, DPI chose MClass as their state assessment and required us to use that beginning last year, so we were kind of in the transition between the 2. So that's the reason why we use 2 different assessments for reading in those grade levels.
So this is kind of an overview of the things that we're doing within our school improvement plan and the steps that we're taking. We made a great deal of progress in our processes and procedures for how we're handling reading interventions last year. So we are now at the point of implementing our academic framework for reading that defines core instruction and curriculum and has standard treatment protocols for students who are not meeting benchmark expectations, and has the appropriate, effective Tier 2 and Tier 3 interventions. So this is something we worked to build last year, and so now we are hitting the ground running, and it's been a really neat process to see that taking place. We have a student, we've been through our first round of assessments, and we're looking and they're not hitting benchmark. Well, what percentage of their class do they fall in? We look at that. We look at any prior interventions they may have had, and we use that to determine very targeted what deficit area do they have. We give them a second screener if it's phonological awareness. We have a specific other screener that we do that really hones in on exactly what they need, and we set them up in interventions following that protocol. It's been really neat to see that working, and I love a good process and procedure, and it's if this then that, and it's been great. So now we're at the using that part. We have coaching through Ms. Breeze for all teachers, and then we have targeted coaching for the teachers with evident weak core instruction as evidenced by our benchmark data. One of the great things that you guys have allowed us to do is have an interventionist this year. So we have Rochelle Leake, who is serving as our interventionist, and she's able to pull out our Tier 3 students. Again, if y'all have questions about the tiers, I know we've gone through all that before, but that's the next level up. It's the next layer on top. We're adding in that layer of support with Ms. Rochelle. We are working on finding the exact programs that we want to use. We feel pretty confident in reading. You'll see when we get to math that we're still working on finding the specific tools that we want there. And one of the biggest initiatives that's a bigger job than I realized it was going to be is creating a peer observation schedule, because I want all of my teachers to be able to observe other teachers who are doing what teachers are good at, and that's teaching. So we started with a survey, what they felt like they were strong in, what they felt like they could use a little bit more help in, and we're doing a crossover pairing so that everybody can get into at least one other teacher's classroom to observe some good practices. So that's in process. Math, we only have already as a measure. There's no M-class for math, and this is our math goal. During the school year, 68% of our students performed on grade level, and during the 22-23 school year, we're going to bump that up to 70. We're kind of keeping some realistic goals with these because this is the area that we still have a lot of work to go here. So with math, again, we're doing that teacher observations. We have Rochelle working with our Tier 3 students, but this is, over on the left, this is a place where on the previous one, we were looking at actually doing the work. This is where we're actually building the framework this time. We don't have all of our materials in place yet. We don't have our process and procedures and protocols in place, so that's what we're building between our instructional coach and our MTSS team, and then teacher input on how do we provide appropriate interventions for the kids who show deficits in specific areas. So we have a lot more work to do here than we do in the reading, but that's what we're going to focus in on. All right, you can go on to the next one. And then for our SEL goal, all of the counselors on campus are working on the ASCA RAMP certification. I looked up the acronym. The RAMP is the Recognized ASCA Model Program, and ASCA is the American School Counselors Association. So our counselor, Ms. Shea, is working on this certification. So our goal is for her to have that 60% complete. But underneath that, it requires a lot of work within the school. So it's not just Shea coming in and teaching some lessons with her students. It's making sure that, kind of goes back to the MTSS with reading and math, that we have a very explicit program for how we're going to move students through core, what we're going to do in the core, what we're going to do if they need a Tier 2, and then what they do at Tier 3. So all of that involves all teachers, not just putting that on our counselor to complete. So these are some of the pieces that we're working on there. We had come up last year with our positive teaching strategies, the I will be respectful, responsible, safe, and a learner. We recite that every day. But what we're kind of finding is that every teacher has a great system, but we have very different systems from classroom to classroom and from grade to grade. So we are really working to bring that all together. Michelle Calashoni and Shea are working hand in hand to work on creating a team that truly defines what are our core PBIS and SEL practices, and then what does the process and procedure look like to get students who need to move through Tier 2 and Tier 3. You can go back just a little bit, sorry. So we're using our existing matrix, which we've created. We had an existing matrix of classroom managed versus office managed behavior. So we have classroom expectations. But how are we implementing that every classroom to make it look the same? Because we want every student to have an equitable experience in all areas, academic, social, emotional, and in their behaviors. Do you guys have questions for me on any of those?
Anybody questions or comments?
Ms. Clemens, when you were saying at the beginning about our teacher, our survey, our satisfaction and stuff, that kind of helped take out probably, like you said, some of the improvement areas that you would have probably had to add in there.
It did.
Right?
It helped us.
Teacher working conditions, and there are things in there I feel like that are very helpful. But is there anything else to add in there for teacher working conditions?
As far as things that we're working on, well, the peer observation, that was the one thing that kind of flagged this year, that they didn't feel like they had a sufficient opportunity to see other teachers. So that's why we chose that. I'm sorry, I should have stated that earlier, but that is one of our main reasons for doing that.
Very Good. Any other questions or comments? If not, then I guess we will entertain a motion to approve that school plan. Is there a need to look at that again until next month? Good.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. So
I'll
is that
make
your
a
motion,
motion.
right?
I'll make a motion, Reba.
So Ms. Crawford makes a motion that we approve the primary school improvement plan, and Ms. Beck seconded that.
I saw your mouth, I thought you made a motion.
So, all in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Okay, very good. Daniel, is that a aye?
Yeah, not hearing.
No. Thank you. And next we have Ms. Godfrey with the elementary school.
So you'll notice a lot of similarities between what Heather and I are working on, and I think that's good because we can collaborate, and it also shows a lot of consistency between our schools, which I'm very thankful for and proud of. So I'm starting with our 3 overarching goals that we want to work on. One is related to math, one related to reading, and one related to student behavior. So our first one is regarding math achievement. All 3rd through 5th grade students will make progress in mathematics as measured by their EOG scores. Percent proficiency will increase from 38.9% to 61.3% of students scoring a level 4 or 5. So we talked about this a little bit when we were reviewing our school performance grades. And so you'll notice that it starts with 38.9. We did have significantly more students than that passed, so I just want to be very clear about that. However, that 38.9 was our percent proficiency scoring at a level 4 or 5, which puts them at college and career ready status, which is what we're aiming for. And so that's why you'll see that number reflected there. That 61.3 is what our long range goals that DPI has set for us for this current school year. So that's where we came up with those numbers. So I wanted to make sure that they weren't vague and you understood where those numbers were coming from. So those goals were pre-COVID. They have not yet been adjusted, so we're just rolling with it. What I'm very proud to say is that if we can capture all of the kids who scored 3s and bump them to 4s or 5s, we'll meet that goal because our overall proficiency was in that target area. So we've just really got to work on pushing those kids up to the level 4 or 5. We have the same exact goal in reading, following the same framework. We want to increase proficiency from 33.9% to 51.8% of students scoring a level 4 or 5 on the EOG. And then for student behavior, our goal is all students will meet or exceed behavior expectations by achieving 90% on their quarterly conduct rubric. So part of the work of our school improvement team 2 years ago was to create a conduct rubric that we attach at midterms and at report card times that give parents feedback on their conduct and their work habits. And so our goal is for all students to achieve an A on that. We know that some students require more support where that's concerned, but our goal is that we want to equip all students to meet that goal. Yes.
Real quick, on the previous slide, you might want to consider on the math and reading achievement, changing that word proficiency to college and career readiness.
Okay.
Because that's really the number you're talking about.
Right.
If you're talking about proficiency, you would have added in the level 3s. You know what I mean?
Correct. So we thought about that, but we opted for 4s and 5s because we thought that was more specific, like that not everyone would know what college and career readiness means. So we'll put both in there if that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It can get confusing because proficient is different than college and career ready.
College and career ready. We're just going to talk about, we have lots of action items within our NC STAR framework, but a lot of them fall under these 3 main emphasis. And so one is our MTSS framework, which is a huge initiative for our school that we have been working on and are continuing to work on. The second is our PBIS, which is Positive Behavior Incentives and Support, Intervention and Support, and our SEL, which is Social Emotional Learning. So those are all different initiatives that we have going on within our schools that we're working working on building a strong framework for. And then the last thing that we're really working on is professional development and collaboration. So you're going to see a lot of similarities between what Ms. Clemens mentioned that they're working on, as well as what we're working on. So within MTSS, one of the changes we've made this year is within MTSS, the goal is that students if all students are receiving Tier 1 supports. If they need a little bit more, if they need supplemental, they're receiving Tier 2 supports, and if they need intensive supports, they're receiving Tier 3. So our goal is that we're not taking any supports away, but rather we're layering them. So it was important for us to be able to schedule time. That's where our teachers were struggling the most with making sure all the layers were built in. So we've tried to be really intentional about our scheduling and how we're allowing time for that each day. That's not only for students who need intervention, it's also for students who need enrichment as well. We talked earlier with Ms. Clemens about the standard treatment protocol, and basically what that means, if you're not familiar with that term, is that when you go to the doctor, everyone that goes in gets weighed, gets their temperature taken, gets their blood pressure taken. It's things that we do just naturally. So our standard treatment protocol is what we're doing for students academically. If they have this symptom, we're going to apply this intervention. And so we need that to be consistent from classroom to classroom, because one, that allows us to equip our teachers with resources to address any deficits, but it also allows us to track progress over time. So it's important for us to be able to develop a standard treatment protocol and timelines as well that promote shared understanding, so that it's consistent from one classroom to the other. We also call it an if-then decision tree, which is a little bit easier to understand. If this is what's happening, then this is how we're going to follow up. We have that completed, so it's we're really proud of that work, but it's also, we're tweaking it as we implement it and see what it still needs. We want to have clearly designated intervention programs and tools. And also we want to be able to clearly define intervention goals and progress monitoring tools. So that if we're delivering an intervention, say in oral reading fluency, we want to be able to say a student has made adequate progress or they have not. So we want to make sure that we have very clearly written goals, that we will know whether or not students are making progress toward those goals, and making sure our teachers have the tools to monitor their progress along the way between their assessments. So that's what we want to do within our MTSS framework. As far as PBIS and SEL, that really is about reviewing data, our behavior data, and making a plan to address any areas of concern. So our PBIS team is taking our educator handbook data, looking for trends and patterns so that we can address areas of concern. We're also, the PBIS team is monitoring the fidelity of our plan. And so we're making an intervention matrix for Tier 2 and Tier 3 behaviors. That's not really something that we've had in place. So again, we're talking about all students are Tier 1. If they need a little bit more support, what does that look like? If they need a whole lot of support, what does that look like? So we want to have that clearly defined. We want to implement school-wide quarterly rewards. Last year we implemented classroom rewards for behavior. And so this year we're adding a layer of school-wide quarterly rewards. Having a dance party after quarter one, if any of you would like to come, show off your skills. As far as SEL goes, we've talked about satchel screeners. That's something we're implementing full force this year. So we're going to be using those screeners as well as rhythm, acquiring that data, and then making an if-then decision tree for SEL and behavior data. When do we know when we need to implement a certain protocol? And then as far as, that looks funny on the screen, professional development and collaboration. We're in year 2 of letters training, and this is the year where we're no longer talking about theory, but talking about practice, so we're getting to the more applicable pieces of letters. We're working on increasing the effectiveness of our PLCs that are meeting weekly. Those are our professional learning communities that our teams are meeting weekly to discuss and review data and adjust instruction accordingly. We want to make sure our teachers are trained on the standard treatment protocols that we were discussing. That includes not only the tools that we're using, but how to use them effectively. We're working on developing pacing guides and making sure that all of our teachers understand the full rigor of the standards. And we're doing that within PLCs. So collectively, by working on these 3 areas, we hope that will help us accomplish those overarching goals that we discussed in the beginning. So
questions or comments for Ms. Godfrey? No? Very good, thank you. So if there are no questions or comments, then I will entertain the motion that we approve the elementary school improvement plan for 22-23.
I'll make that motion, we approve.
Ms. Beck, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Ms. Crawford, all in favor? Thank you. And next we have Ms. Rich.
I think you guys had, it was a lot easier for me to go by handout than go back and forth to the screen. I hope it's okay with you guys.
Thank you.
Ms. Bud just lays out how we plan for this year.
While Ms. Rich is doing that, let it be known that Ms. Godfrey's presentation was shorter than Ms. Clemens. I think that's the first time that has ever happened.
Well, I'll keep it going in that direction and I'll make it. Okay, so first up, I think our first slide just has our school improvement team and the data items that we reviewed. And much like Ms. Godfrey and Ms. Clemens, we started our work back during the summer. So that's our school improvement team. And so we looked at several pieces of data. It's just the normal data that you would look at, like EOG, I-rating, benchmark data, our teacher working conditions. Our educators can big data, but we also sent out a climate survey of parents, and we did some interviewing of the staff as well. And so when we looked at that data, we came up with our 4 focus areas. And our 4 focus areas for us, we kind of do this a little bit differently than looks like elementary and primary, but when we looked at that data, we saw that, of course, there is a need to increase student achievement. We feel like 50% pass rate, proficiency rate doesn't represent what our students can do. We felt like improving classroom management and student behavior was definitely a must. We had a large number of in-school suspensions last year, and that's one of our goals is to decrease that. We felt like increasing parent communication involvement would actually help some with that classroom management and student behavior, as well as the student achievement, so that became one of our goals as well. We also had parent input that said that they felt like they didn't have that at the middle school when we did our climate survey. So, of course, that became one of our goals as well, and also just creating a positive school culture. So a little bit about those things. So we tried to pick indicators that would help us meet those goals. In increasing student achievement, we chose 2 indicators that we felt would be most impactful in increasing student achievement, and those are B303 and A404. And for y'all, that doesn't really mean anything, but the B303 is an indicator that speaks to the responsibility of the principal as an instructional leader. And our action steps will focus on being visible in classrooms on a daily basis to do walkthroughs and making formal observations beneficial through feedback and reflection of the teacher. A401 is our MTSS indicator, and the focus of this work will revolve around utilizing win time to deliver targeted skill interventions, much like the primary and the elementary, for areas that need improvement, and also utilizing data decision rules to guide care team decisions. We're also looking to adopt and have chosen a vocabulary program, which already says that our students need, and we're going to start focusing on literacy instruction in all content areas. So we're hoping that will help us with student achievement. A big one for us is improving classroom management and student behavior, and our indicator there is A107, which means that our work will focus on implementing PBIs to fidelity. That means using the matrix to guide discipline decisions and to provide consistency and consequences. We also want to be able to provide Tier 2 interventions for students that need them. Increasing parental involvement, we chose 2 indicators there as well. These are E105 and E106. E105 speaks to the importance of candid 2-way communication between our school and parents and guardians. And the focus of our work this year will be building a parent advisory committee that meets to help guide our decision making, as well as increase parent involvement in middle school events, and hopefully to get some volunteers into our classrooms as well. We have Ms. Carrie Hood, who has stepped up to head that for us, so we're very thankful for her. And we want to start sending out weekly reminders through Remind, so that parents and teachers have that constant communication. E106 is an indicator that speaks to the importance of communicating with parents about their students' progress and what they can do at home to support their student. And so our focus here is we're going to start implementing regular meetings with parents by our teachers, and we've chosen 2 work days to do that, one in January, one in March. It's much like what Ms. Clemens did at the primary school with her conference day, so hoping that will help us as well. Creating a positive school culture, we chose 2 indicators there, B201 and C304. B201 is an indicator that calls for school to promote the physical, social, emotional, and behavioral health of the staff. And so the focus of our work in this indicator will be ensuring that we maintain a safe learning environment and that teachers are comfortable in their role in providing this. We're also looking to rebrand our school to encourage a sense of belonging and pride in our school. We're working to adopt a school motto and spotlight our traditions and our accomplishments. C304 is an indicator that calls for schools to have a system of recruiting, evaluating, and rewarding staff. And the focus of our work here will be to create a regular recognition system for staff members, most of those that go above and beyond, as well as partnerships with colleges, universities, and recruiting sites to help fill up vacant positions. We kind of have something started now, it's called Brightest Stars, and it comes from us saying that the brightest stars are those that shine for the benefit of others, and so that's kind of our overarching theme right now. And so we're just looking for teachers that go above and beyond. So that's it in a nutshell. Any questions?
Thank you for the hard copy.
You're welcome.
I can actually see and read
You're
it.
welcome.
Any questions or comments from Ms. Rich? No.
I think I really like the 4 focus areas that you have here. I think it hits on a lot of things that are especially important for middle school.
Right.
So I think that's very good.
Well, I will entertain a motion that we approve the school improvement plan for the Hazel Middle School.
Make a recommendation,
Mr. Jones.
a motion.
A motion.
I'll second it.
Ms. Beck, second. All in favor? Thank you, Ms. Rich. And next we have Mr. Overland with the high school plan.
Good evening, Clay County. For the high school this year, before I get into the school improvement plan, I just want to mention a couple of things that are going on this week in campus life. We are winding down our regular season for fall athletics. And I just want to give a little thank you and shout out to all of our coaches, support staff, our fans, and especially our student athletes. Volleyball goes to Greensboro again tomorrow to take on Uwalry Charter School in the second round of the state playoffs. Men's soccer is finishing their regular season this week and will start state playoffs next Monday. We have 7 cross-country runners competing in the West Regional this Saturday. And then football's regular season finale is at home this Friday against Robbinsville. And that's also senior night, so we hope to have a big crowd for that. And then I think one of the things that has the most excitement in the school right now is Powder Puff football. That's going to be Thursday evening at 5:30 at our stadium, and admissions is $5 for that. So I think kids are really excited to be bringing that back. Okay, school improvement plan. We'll start with just our mission, because everything kind of flows out of that. Knowing our students' needs and developing the supports that they need for their success by collaborating with their families and with the community. So we've very intentionally this year tried to flow our school improvement plan and all of our strategies and actions out of that mission so that everything's aligned to that. And hopefully you'll see that tonight. Our team members, we have a fantastic school improvement team that really go above and beyond and are willing to take on some good, hearty discussions, in our meetings, and really trying to find ways to improve our school, as the name suggests. Kim Chastain, Mary Cothran, Autumn Dockery, Ellen Engelman, Stephanie Foley, Becky Grindstaff is our parent rep, Aaron McCoy, Grant Nicholson, Michelle Reinhardt, Quincy Rickett, Anissa Roberts, Gabrielle Smith, Carissa Teague, and Teresa Waldrop is our community rep. So I can't say enough about this group. They're a hardworking group. Our goals for this year, this group set 4 goals for this school year. And the first 2, just somebody mentioned this earlier, I think it was Ms. Godfrey, we really took these just straight from the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction, and it's a math goal and a reading goal. So for math proficiency, which on the EOC for Math 1 and Math 3 is a 3, a 4, or a 5, our goal for that is 59%. Okay, so now last year Math 3 actually beat that. Math 1 was approaching it, if we combine those 2 together, that's our goal for this year is 59%. In English 2, it's 63.3%. Again, those first 2 really were set by the state as long-term goals, so we just thought we would use those. The last 2 goals were individual to our high school, graduation rate of 90%. And then the last one, really, if you think about it, impacts all the 3 prior goals, which is attendance. If students aren't in class, it's hard for them to learn, hard for them to perform, and ultimately hard for them to graduate. So our monthly attendance goal is 95%. All right, our focus areas this year, stemming out of our school improvement plan, are 4 things. Multi-tiered systems of support, which have been mentioned before, and also our collaborative PLCs, which is professional learning communities. Those are teams of teachers that work together to kind of dig into 4 big questions about student performance. Question 1 is, what do we want? What do we really need students to learn? What are the essential learning standards? Question 2 is, how will we know when they've learned that? Question 3 is, what are we going to do about it for the students who haven't learned it, who are learning it more slowly than the others? And question 4 is, what do we do about the students who walked in on the first day of school already knowing this? How are we going to extend their learning even further? So that's what the first 2 groups are the first 2 focus areas are really working on with professional learning communities in our tiered instructional system. The next one, I think, was it Ms. Clemens who mentioned the school counseling certification, RAMP. We're in year 2 of this process, and we're going to try to get some traction on that this year. We have, I'll talk more about that in just a moment, but I think by the end of next school year, that is the goal, to achieve RAMP certification then. In the area of attendance, some of the things we're doing is really trying to increase that parent communication. We have, certain attendance numbers where when a student hits their 5th absence, teachers are calling home. When they hit their 7th absence, we're calling them in for a meeting. And then at the end of the semester, any students who have missed 15 or more days of school, they're going to have to go to a mandatory attendance committee hearing. So we'll see how these things go, but we are making a focus on attendance. And some of the feedback I've got from teachers is that so far it's working. Key indicators. This is really the meat and potatoes of the school improvement process. This is what we talk about every month when we meet. And we've made a lot of good progress in the last couple of years and have frankly closed out a lot of our indicators. But now we're going to reopen some of them because it's an ongoing thing. So, just when you think you're done with everything, some new ideas come along or you want to try something different. So, we feel pretty comfortable reopening indicators that were previously closed. So, one that we're going to work on is B303, Principal Monitoring Instruction. So the idea there is that Mrs. Teague and I are going to do 50 snapshot observations for the semester. Between the 2 of us, we're going to do at least 50 walkthrough observations and provide feedback to the teachers. When we do that, that'll be that indicator B303 will be complete. We have reopened one indicator, A416, and that's student transitions and support. Really, that's the counselor's indicator. We're reopening that one, and in the September meeting, we decided to do that and add in 4 new action steps that are relative to RAMP certification. Things like getting their counseling department mission and vision, counselors attending PLCs, starting up an advisory council specific to RAMP, that type of thing. And then I think we're also going to reopen indicator A401, which is the tiered instruction indicator. I think we're doing some things there, and we have some goals, specifically a standard treatment protocol, which you've heard mentioned before. I won't get into that too much more, but that's something we're going to be working on this year. And we feel like if we do a good job with all of these things. There is absolutely no reason why we can't maintain our school performance grade of a B, which we got last year. And I think it's very realistic for us to go from meeting growth to exceeding growth. So that's what we hope to see happen. But again, these are just plans. And, you know, like Mike Tyson said one time, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. And we're not going to get punched in the mouth. But, you know, things will happen during the school year that cause us to, you know, have to adjust, reevaluate, and our improvement team is fantastic with that. So, with all that, our school improvement team developed and passed this plan. Our entire faculty voted on it and unanimously passed it, and I would respectfully ask for your approval tonight. Any questions for me?
Any questions or comments for Mr. Overland?
Mine is more of a comment. I like how, like, with the primary and the elementary, they kind of work together, and then I noticed between Miss Rich and Mr. Overland, how your plans are kind of, I think that's a good transition to help. So I like that. Just a comment.
Good. Thank you.
Very good. Any other questions or comments?
I do like the way it shows the continuity all the way through, and even the elementary school and primary school are talking about career ready and college ready, which, you know, if the foundation is not laid, the building is not going to go up. So I appreciate that.
Just a couple of additional points. You heard each school has a goal of the counselors working to be ASCA certified in their counseling program. The American School Counselors Association provides a rubric that measures and gives very specific guidelines to what it takes to have what they call a high quality school counseling program. So these are the best people in their field that come up with a picture of what a high quality school counseling program should provide at any school. And so we figured, why not use that as the guideline for how we're building our counseling programs. And you'll notice that that's also under our strategic plan, under goal 1, which is improving student safety, health, and welfare. The second from the last point there says that it will build a district student support team that leads and implements necessary support structures, including SEL, PBIS, and I can't read that, and crisis support. This work will lead to each school developing an ASCA RAMP certified school counseling program. So that was very specific in our strategic plan, and it's good to see that each school now is working towards that. And they do meet together as a district student support team once a month to push this work forward. So that's one thing that is in progress, but we haven't completed yet in our strategic plan. The other thing, I think you'll see that as a leadership team, we have a huge belief that if you focus on the nuts and bolts of your curriculum and instruction, that's where the vast majority of your student learning outcome improvements will come from. I don't think anyone heard anything too super edgy tonight in our school improvement plans. We're focusing on how we use our time, what instructional strategies we're using, how we can improve our student support structures that will address the obstacles that students sometimes have that don't allow them to focus on learning during the day. That's what the focus is on. So I just wanted to make sure Mr. Rose heard that, and anyone else out there in the public.
That's what I was saying.
There's nothing wrong with looking at some different things from time to time that are a little more aspirational that we can tie in as themes to our instruction. But the actual work that we're doing to improve student learning outcomes is very sort of nuts and bolts.
Could I ask about the counselor's certification? Is this something that they're going to have to go through and get extra classes or use some credit or whatever?
No, so they are provided with resources. They are all members of the American School Counselors Association because I make sure of that. And that allows them to attend a training conference every year because North Carolina has a chapter of that. It also gives them access to resource materials. And in those resource materials, it gives them everything they need to kind of go through this process. There are online training webinars on specific parts of it that they can attend if they choose or if they need it, but they're not required to.
Okay. I was just concerned that they might be required to go to, unlimited number of hours and so forth, over and above there, which is not a bad thing, but I was just curious about that.
Well, and we've allocated 3 years for them to build a high-quality school counseling program that meets the requirements of this rubric that their peers have created. And if they need more training in order to better do their jobs, then I expect them to do it. But no, I don't think our counselors are going to have to do anything extreme above and beyond. I think they're going to have to do some stuff, but it'll be at their own decision to do that.
And I'm sure that they're going to be very motivated and very eager to improve to meet their goals.
Very good. So I will entertain a motion that we approve the high school's improvement plan.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Mr. Jones, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all for doing that. I know there's a lot of work that goes into those, so thank you all as principals and your improvement teams for putting all that together, so I appreciate y'all. Next item is the consent agenda. There's the approval of the board minutes from September 26th regular session. And then the regulations, there's a group of those that are for actions that were in the Google Drive. And then there's also a set that's there for a first read this month as well. So if there's not any questions or comments about the consent agenda, I'll entertain a motion that we approve that as presented.
Motion to approve.
Ms. Beck has a motion to approve the consent agenda. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Caldwell, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. If there's not any other,
I'm sorry.
nope, go ahead.
No, I just wanted, while we have all principals here, and board members as well, I would just like to mention, as co-president of the Clay County Historical and Arts Council, I would like for all of you to know and to pass on to your teachers that our museum will be open for anyone who would like to make an arrangement for special tours to come over if you want students to go. And that would be anytime into the fall as well, to the spring as well. We are closing as of this weekend, and so we will be moving on into getting our exhibits sort of covered up and so forth. But if we have a group that wants to come, we'll accommodate students and anyone in your school who would like to come. We would love to open our museum for you. Have some wonderful, wonderful exhibits that I think would be very meaningful for these students to take. So you'll be welcome. If you're interested, you would need to use my own personal phone number, which is 0129. So just put that down as 389. So leave me a message or get in touch with me, and I'd love to arrange that for you.
Thank you, Ms. Beck. If there's no other comments and questions, then I'll entertain a motion that we go into closed session.
I'll make a motion to go into closed session.
Is there a second to that? Second. Mr. Jones, second. All in favor?